Hello everybody, and welcome back again to the Reggae Appreciation Society. I always say that modern Jamaican music can be credited to one person with regards to its creation and evolution, as it's the product of the collective brilliance of singers, songwriters, instrumentalists, and producers over the years. But if I was forced to single out one person as the biggest soul influence, I would name master guitarist Ernest Ranglin in a heartbeat. He's not only enjoyed an unbelievably long career of 7 decades, or is one of the most gifted guitarists to ever walk the earth, but he's the very instrumentalist that invented the offbeat skank rhythm that is the very foundation of ska, rocksteady, and reggae. Bob Marley perfectly described this rhythm in this short clip. Take a listen.
You know, it developed to people start ching, 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 ching for ska, you know, and then for rocksteady like ching, jang, jang, for reggae noise, check, 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 you know.
This skank rhythm was the brainchild of Ernest Ranglin, the undisputed architect of Jamaican guitar play. The drum and the bass is without a doubt the backbone of reggae, but the offbeat skank rhythm is truly the source of its identity. He would apply his genius creation to the very first ska recordings in the 1950s, and single-handedly took that sound international when he arranged and powered the first ska global hit, which was Millie Small's My Boy Lollipop in 1964. Not many people can boast of being the mentor of legendary ska band the Scatterlights, guiding, arranging, and playing on the early works of the Wailers, Ken Booth, Jimmy Cliff, and countless other foundational reggae artists, playing on plus arranging and putting together the phenomenal soundtracks of movies like the first James Bond film, Dr. No, or The Harder They Come, starring Jimmy Cliff. This man's journey has recorded countless accolades that lend so much weight to Chris Blackwell's famous statement that Ernest Ranglin is the most important musician to ever emerge from Jamaica. And when you consider Blackwell's Island Records' role in Jamaican music, this is a huge statement to make. This humble titan's life and journey is simply unbelievable and deserves to be celebrated. So without further ado, let's take a look at the career and journey of Ernest Ranglin, the true inventor of ska and reggae. He was born in the Manchester parish of Jamaica in 1932 and was surrounded by music while growing up, as his mother played the organ at the local church, and 2 of his uncles were great guitar players. At the age of 5, he would pick up their guitars to practice after they had left for work. He took to the guitar like a natural, and by the age of 15 was so good he would join ace saxophonist Val Bennett's orchestra, where he would cut his teeth as a professional. He was in those early days primarily a jazz guitarist, and quickly made a name for himself that led to gigs with other bands on the hotel and tourist circuits. He was also gifted in indigenous genres like mento and calypso to crown a specialty in jazz and R&B. And that became the foundation of the offbeat skank rhythm that he would pioneer in a matter of time. He was employed as a guitarist at Jamaica's Broadcasting Corporation in 1955 and was approached a year later by a young sound system owner called Coxsone Dodd, who was still putting together a recording studio that would be called Studio One. He would offer Ernest a role as musical director, arranger of the music, and of course, in-house studio guitarist. Ernest would simply jump at the opportunity, working his day job at the radio by day and working with Coxsone Dodd in the evenings at the studio. And one Sunday evening, while brainstorming with Coxsone, he proposed a groundbreaking idea for a fusion of calypso and mento in tandem with a jazz and R&B sound. Dodd loved it and let him express himself in what was one of the studio's first recordings on a song called Easy Snapping by singer Theophilus Beckford in 1956. This bluesy number, which featured Ernest Ranglin's offbeat play, is widely regarded as the first ska track ever recorded. This song was an instant hit when Coxsone Dodd played it at his sound system dances, and an eventual hit in the charts when it was released as a single in 1959, as it hit number 1 and stayed in Jamaica's charts for 18 months, and it also sold well in the UK. Everybody went nuts over the song, and especially over the strange offbeat guitar rhythm. And when Ranglin duplicated the magic on Beckford's second single, Jack and Jill Shuffle, which also became a hit, it became obvious that there was something special about that unique sound. Coxsone Dodd, being a sharp businessman, saw there was a market for indigenous versions of American R&B that could be interpreted with this fusion of mento, calypso, and jazz. And from around Kingston, he would handpick gifted young jazz instrumentalists like Tommy McCook, Don Drummond, and Roland Alfonso to form his studio backing band that eventually became known as the Scatterlights. Ernest Ranglin, as the music director at Studio One, would mentor these youngsters and help them develop that sound that became known as ska in its finished form by 1960, and it exploded in popularity as the reigning genre of music in Jamaica. Ernest Ranglin's guitar play would power the songs of ska's early superstars like Owen Gray, Prince Buster, the Scatterlights, and most famous, the Wailers, who he also mentored and arranged their first hits like Simmer Down and It Hurts to Be Alone. In 1962, the first James Bond movie, named Dr. No, was being shot in Jamaica, and the producers wanted the soundtrack to have an authentic Caribbean island flavor. So British composer Monty Norman, who was in charge of the movie's soundtrack, would hire Ernest Ranglin to form part of the team, and he would lend his guitar licks to classic tracks like Jump Up and Under the Mango Tree that all together would make for a wonderful score. And though he didn't get paid for his work, he would reconnect and become friendly with a young production assistant on that set who was called Chris Blackwell, a young British Jamaican lad who had just opened a label called Island Records. Blackwell had been a big fan of Ernest after watching him play at a popular nightclub called the Glass Bucket some years before, and he felt that Jamaican music would soon be big internationally and that Ernest was the guy to make it happen. Blackwell moved back to London soon after and flew Ernest over there a year later to rearrange and play the guitar on an R&B song from 1957 that was called My Boy Lollipop, and to make it into a ska tune for a teenage Jamaican singer called Millie Small. And by March 1964, the song My Boy Lollipop, which was released under Island Records, had become a global smash hit that sold 7 million copies and was the third best-selling single of that year around the globe. That track opened the floodgates for Jamaican music and launched ska to a global audience. Ranglin would go back soon after to focus on playing in jazz bands in the UK for a while, before coming back to Jamaica in 1967 to work with producers like Lee Scratch Perry, Leslie Kong, and Clancy Eccles, who were then laying the foundations of reggae music in what were the last days of rocksteady, which had been pioneered by fellow guitarist Lynn Tate in his absence. He was suddenly again in heavy demand as a session instrumentalist and a mentor to artists like Jimmy Cliff, for whom he would deploy his wizardry on his breakout international hit single, Wonderful World, Beautiful People, plus the melodians on their classic masterpiece from 1970, By the Rivers of Babylon. He also played guitar and arranged classic songs for Toots and the Maytals like Bam Bam, Pressure Drop, and 5446 Was My Number. Ernest Ranglin would also contribute his guitar licks to the soundtrack of The Harder They Come on songs like title track Harder They Come, Many Rivers to Cross, and Sitting in Limbo. The scale of his influence in the 70s was also staggering, as he practically mentored every major producer and artists that became legends in that decade, on top of having his musical DNA on every ska or reggae tune that we ever listened to. He was awarded the Order of Distinction by Jamaica's government for his contributions to music, and on top of his own projects, he became Jimmy Cliff's music director and guitarist, touring with him all over the world and arranging classics like Bongo Man and Stand Up and Fight Back. As the 70s progressed, he also did incredible work as a part member of Lee Scratch Perry's in-house band, The Upsetters, on countless masterpiece tracks, plus legendary compilations like the Congos album Heart of the Congos and Junior Mervin's Police and Thieves. He moved to Florida in 1982 and would largely revert to his first love, that was jazz. Though he would lend his powers to the odd reggae tune every now and then, he would focus on putting out his own material, and has over the years unleashed 32 albums in his sparkling career. The most recent, a joint album with saxophonist Dean Fraser called Two Colors that came out in 2022. It goes without saying that the great Ernest Ranglin is one of the greatest musicians to ever walk the earth, who's not only the inventor of Jamaican modern music, but definitely one of the biggest heroes in the pantheon of global sound. So there you have it. Thank you for watching this video today. Please leave a like, subscribe, and until next time, Jah bless.